Dear students, welcome to my session. I am Ravi Kumar KR, lecturer in Computer Science, gsipucmysuru College, Mysore. In our previous sessions or in your previous chapter, we have learned about the basic concepts of OOPS and what are the advantages of OOPS, drawbacks of OOPS and applications of OOPS. And apart from that, already you have learned the characteristics of OOPS. They are class, object, data encapsulation, data abstraction, data polymorphism, and so on. So my dear students, in this session, I am going to explain the chapter 7, classes and objects. Weightage of this chapter is 6. Out of 6, 1 mark question 1, 5 mark question 1. So weightage is 6 marks. Okay. In previous chapter, you have learned the basic definition of object. What is an object? Object is an entity having some characteristics and behavior. Now, how do we represent this object? Suppose this is an object. For example, this is object, and here this object having some data variables. Apart from this, we have member function. This is how we represent an object. So here, this is what you have learned in previous chapter. So here, what is an object? Entity. It is an entity having some characteristics and behavior. So when it comes to real world object, or when we are going to incorporate this with respect to programming, in programming concepts, these characters of an object, or we are representing through variables, or we say members, data members, and the behavior of an object are representing through methods. See, this is how we represent object. What is an object? Object is an entity having some characteristics and behavior. So for example, if this is an object here, it has some characteristics and behavior. Now look at some example here. Let us take an example of an object. Here, suppose I am going to take student object, and what we represent here, I am talking about name of a student, his section, his grade. These things I can consider as data members or data variables. And with here I am going to display the details of a student here. So here I am going to write here display. So this is your method. This is a method, and this is called data members. Suppose this student is an object here, name of a student, section, and his grade. We consider this one as a data members, and with the help of this, I am going to display his details. I am going to display the details of a student with the help of a function or a method display. So this is an student object. If you take one more example, suppose if I say another simple example, car is an object for us. If I talk about a car, general car, and here I am talking about shape of a car or its model and as well as his color. These things we can represent or we can say these are called data members. And along with this, if I talk about an object or a car, it has many functions to do. For example, gear system. Gear system is one function. Similarly, brake system is one function. And ignition is one more function. So here, suppose this is an object for us. So what is an object here? Object is an entity which has some characteristics and behavior. So these are examples of object. Now let us represent, how do we represent class now? Now in previous chapter you have learned the definition of a class. What is a class? Class is nothing but a group of objects of similar behavior and characteristics. So what is a class? Class is a group of objects of similar characteristics and behavior. How do you represent class now? This is, for example, this is object 1. This object 1 has data 1 and method 1. This is method 1. You take one more object, object 2. This is data 2 as well as method 2. Here in this example there are two objects. Object 1 has its own data, variables and member function. Similarly, object 2 has its own data, variables as well as member function. So what is a class? Class is nothing but it is a group of objects, or it is going to combine the objects into one single unit or one single entity. So this is how we represent class. Or another way we can also represent class like this. Suppose this is a class. This class, this is data members and methods. This is class. This class, how do we represent objects? It has different objects. You say object 1. In object 1, data 1, method 1. This is one object, and this is object 2, and it has variables data 2 and method 2. And this class has two objects, 1, 2. So this is how we can also represent class and objects like this. So this is what you learned in previous chapter, class as well as objects. Now by looking at this, what is the definition of a class? We write the definition of a class once again. So What is a class now? This class, it combines the data members. It combines the data members along with appropriate functions for manipulation of the objects. This is also a definition of a class. And here you also know that, just recall what you have learned in last year, data types of C++. In data types, there are three types of data types in C++. They are fundamental data types, derived data types, and user defined data types. So this class is user defined data type. User defined data type. Okay, students, hope you have understood what is a class and object. How do we represent class as well as objects? So this class combines the data members along with the functions for manipulation with respect to objects, and it is also a user defined data types. And as I told you already in your previous chapter, we have learned the characteristics of OOPs. So they are again data hiding, data encapsulation, data abstraction, data polymorphism, so on. So students, now in this chapter, classes and objects, you are going to learn how do we implement characteristics of OOPs in programming, or we are going to learn how do we make use of, or how do we implement these characteristics of OOPs with respect to programming. And that is, we are, with the help of class and object, we are going to implement these characteristics. Now let us learn the syntax of how do we define and declare a class. Students, now let us learn what is class definition and declaration of class and objects. What is a class definition? This class definition is nothing but process of naming a class. It is a process of naming a class along with data members, and member function and member methods. So this is the meaning of what is class definition. And class definition is nothing but naming a class along with, because all of you know, this class is going to combine data members as well as member methods. So we are going to define a class, we name the class along with the data members or variables and member methods or functions. So this is This is class definition. Now let us see the syntax of how do we define a class. Syntax of class definition. This is class user defined name flower bracket, and here say private colon data members and methods protected data members and methods. And next one is public data members and methods semicolon. Now we are closing the class with parenthesis and semicolon. So this is the syntax or of how to define a class or class definition. Here class, this is the reserved class, user defined name. Here this class is a keyword, class is a keyword, and here user defined name, this is nothing but identifiers. This is nothing but identifiers. Students, you know in basic of C++ what are identifiers? Identifiers are the one used to name the variables and functions, etc. So here while naming an identifier you must follow certain rules, like it consists of alphabetic characters or alphanumeric characters, and there won't be any special characters, and it may not accept any space between, and we are not supposed to use keyword as an identifier. So keeping those things in our mind, we have to write the name of the class. So this is class a reserved word or a keyword. This is a keyword or a reserved word with identifier name. So we can name the class. After this, open this flower bracket, and here this private protected public. Here this data, these variables as well as methods we can define, we can declare in three methods or three ways. They are private, protected and public. They are called as access specifiers. Access specifiers. They are called as access. They are private, protected and public. These three are access specifiers, and these specifiers will define the scope of variables or data members as well as methods. Data members as well as method. So class, user defined name, access by private, and here data members or functions or methods associated with values or data members. Similarly protected, public, and we have to close the class with flower bracket, closing the flower bracket along with a semicolon. This is very, very important here. So this is how we define our syntax of class definition. Now let us write one example. How do we define a class? For example, I say class, it is a reserved word, and here I say class add, I'm going to write name of a class as add here. So here open this flower bracket. Now here I can declare the variables or member function either of the ways or any of the access specifier. So let me write example with private variables, and here this add I am declaring two variables under this, for example int x and int y, and here this is private variables, and I'm going to write one public access specifier. Here I'm going to write member methods. First, for example, I say void input semicolon void sum, it is one more function or method, and void display semicolon, and here I am closing the class with this flower bracket and semicolon. So this is one example for class definition, or how do we define a class. Look at the syntax here. Here in this example, class is a keyword. Class is a keyword. This is addition, because I am going to add these two numbers. So I have given the name as add here. So add is name of a class. Apart from this, next open the flower bracket, private access specifier, and here colon is important, and here I am going to use two variables. I want to add two numbers here, x and y. So apart from this, I have declared functions under public access specifier, and here void input is a one method or a function. I am using this function to accept values for x and y. Next, I am using one more function here, sum function. So this function, with the help of this, inside this I am going to add these two numbers or values of x and y, and I have one more function, void display. I am using this function here, this method, to print out the answer or addition of these two numbers. So, and I am closing with this flower bracket as well as semicolon. So student, this is one more example for class, or how to define a class. I repeat once again, this syntax of a class. Class is a reserved word or a keyword, user defined name. For in this example, add. So it is an identifier. So identifier, as I told you already, we have to keep rules, means how to frame an identifier. Those things you have to keep in your mind. Then we have to write the name of a class. Upon name, open the bracket, private access specifiers, I am data members. In this example, x and y are the variables for me. They are the data members. And public, here in this example I have used public access specifier. So here I have used here three methods or three functions. They are void input function. I am using this to accept the values of x and y, and I am using the one more function sum here to add these two numbers, and again I am using one more function display to print or display the result of this addition. So this is one more example. Now let us write one more example of class. Class account, and here private access specifier with variables character name. This is name of an account holder, and integer account number, one more variable, and I say double balance. Double balance is one more variable here. Now under public I am going to declare or define functions. One is to accept the data, I say void input is a function. This I'm using this to accept the values of all these things. Next, with the help of this, I want to display. I want to display the details. One more function. I am closing this with flower bracket and semicolon. Now this is another example for how to define a class. Class reserved, name of the class, identifier, private access specifier, character, this is name 10, these are the variables, account number as well as balance. And under public, I am going to declare methods or functions, two functions. One is void input, this is to accept the values for these variables, as well as, and I am using one more function, void display. This is to display the details what you have entered. So, and closing with parenthesis as well as semicolon. So this is another example of how to define a class. Students, let me stop at this stage and I will come back to you in my next session. Thank you very much.